Hey everybody, welcome to Fab Fit Friday. I have an exciting announcement, which if you follow along with me, you might already be aware of. Um, we reached 40,000 subscribers today. I woke up this morning and we were at 39,995 subscribers. And then I went hiking, and when I got back, I was within two of 40,000. So I think my husband tried to capture the rollover to 40,000 on a little video. So we'll see if I can post that later. But it was really kind of exciting. So I do want to thank everybody who follows along with me. Um, hey, Mary, how are you? Thank you for following me, Mary, because now we're at 40,000 subscribers, and I don't know, I'm gunning for 100,000. You know, that's the first big benchmark on YouTube, and I think more sewing channels should have lots and lots of subscribers. So, I just wanted to take a minute and thank everybody for supporting me and following along with me. Hi, Diane. Welcome. Happy Friday to you, too. This is going to be a fun FabFit Friday because I'm actually prepared and I actually did what I said I was going to do. I actually stayed on schedule, so I'm super excited. So the first thing I want to talk about is my boo-boo that I made. So here's my shirt, and I'm just going to take it off of here, I think. We'll leave that out of the way. All right, let me switch my view so you can see my first issue that I have happening here. I think I posted some pictures of my construction. I did everything that we needed to do in terms of finishing everything except for the collar and the collar stand. Hi, Judy. Welcome. Happy Friday. I am going to zoom in, and I'm also going to blow out the, sorry about that. Just want to get it so it's nice and clear so you can see. And let's take a little tour of what I did so far. You can see I finished my my little vents. So there's one, and then here's the other one. And actually, if you look really closely, this one is centered and on point. So you can see the stitching here for the, for the inside. Looks like this. I'm really happy with this construction. What I ended up doing, I don't know if you remember this from last week, but I thought for a second I was going to press my seam allowances open, but then I decided I pressed them open under here, and then I clipped the front seam allowance so I could push it to the back, because up at the top I don't want to have my seam allowance open because I have a bust dart there. So I ended up pressing all my seam allowances to the back except underneath this little facing where I clipped it. So it's pressed open right here, and then I clipped it and pressed it this way. So that's what the construction for the vent looks like. And then I top stitched, let's take a look at this. I top stitched my button placket in place. Okay, so I've got my nice button placket. And remember, this is this really nice soft interfacing, and I just wanted to show you. I think I cut a little piece of it, and of course it's so light and airy I might have lost it. I wanted to just show how sheer the interfacing was that I used. Hold on. All right, so the interfacing that I used. Hi, PRDSJ family. Welcome, welcome. All right, so look at this interfacing. This is the sheer interfacing that I used to interface the button placket and the facing to finish the hem. And you can see how nice and airy it is. Nice and airy and light. That's how I got that nice, soft hem, with the interfacing. And also you'll notice that my button placket is also nice and soft and drapey. Now, I'm going to use a different interfacing for the collar, and I'll show you that when we get to that point. But there's one more thing I want to talk about before I get there. You can see here, this is the boo-boo I made when I dropped my Sharpie marker in my lap during Fit Tip Tuesday when I was wearing this to show the fit of it and where I was in my construction. And I got one little dot on this side, and then I got this little streak here. Now, so when I did that, I left it in the video because I wanted to ask people's recommendations to clean it. One of the recommendations was alcohol, and the other one was Dawn dish soap. So what I did was, Dawn, this is a new packaging where you just leave it like this, and apparently it doesn't drip. You just squirt it and then put it back down, and see, it says no mess. So I don't know if that's going to work. I'll try it. But basically, here's what happened. All right, you can see here, I think you can see there's still a little bit of green showing. Can you see it? Let me zoom in really close. I guess that's the closest I can zoom. Let me pick it up, and I'm gonna, let me see if I can focus on this. There we go. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's still some slight green here and here. So what I did was I made two marks on this scrap. Hey, Joy and Francis, welcome. I'm showing my boo-boo and how I tried to fix it. So on this side, I just used a little bit of Dawn and I rubbed it in. And on this side, I did a little alcohol and I rubbed it in. And it worked, but it didn't completely remove it. So what I did was I took both sides and I went like this and I scrubbed it. So I got the alcohol and the Dawn to mix together. And you can see it's pretty good. I mean, I'd have to work on it some more, but I feel hopeful that I'll be able to get out the rest of it. Just trying to show you. See, like right there, there's some green left, just a little bit. So I just wanted to show you that alcohol and Dawn together, I think, was the best option. So if anybody gets Sharpie marker on their fabric, try using a little Dawn with a little isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol. Try it. All right, so I'm going to rinse this out and see if I can get the rest of the stain out. But as you can see, even if it's only subtle like that, that would be so much better. I think you can see it right there, see? So much better than it was. Hey, Janie, welcome. So that's my little adventure in cleaning my boo-boo. So I will work on that some more later, but I just wanted to try it and show you. The next thing we're going to work on is we're going to work on fixing the focus first here. There we go. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is I already cut out my collar stand. So I want to show you how we're going to do this. Now, if you're working with a solid or print that doesn't have a stripe, you can cut your collar stand and collar out in one piece. So this is my one piece collar stand. What I did was I folded it in half and I pinned it together, and then I cut them out so I would have a center back seam. And the reason why I did that, and you'll notice when I cut them out, I cut them a half an inch longer. So see how I added a half an inch here for a seam allowance for the center back. This pencil line is my center back seam after I trued it up and walked it into my neckline. And I have a good tip for that I'm going to show you. Oh my goodness. PRDSJ family says it's 3:10 a.m. Saturday morning in Australia. Well, I hope you are watching because you couldn't sleep. um, I would hate to think you'd get up that early in the morning to watch me live. Thank you so much. Maybe listening to me talk will put you back to sleep. I don't know. We'll see. Francis says that looks great now. Thank you. Oh, Janie says good to know. Yeah, well, you thank my subscribers, because if you go look at Fit Tip Tuesday video, the comments below were how I figured out how to try to clean that. There were suggestions from people um, underneath that video, so I'm very grateful for that, because I wouldn't have known what to do. All right, so first of all, let me just back up here. Notice I had to add. This is my shoulder notch right here, this little pencil. And when I walked it through, I was a half an inch short. So I added a half an inch at the center back. So I moved the center back over a half an inch. And I have a pretty good tip for walking your collar stand. Now, if your shirt pattern has a separate button placket, you have to line it up on the stitching line, and you have to extend the collar stand, or walk the collar stand all the way to the end of that. So this is what it looks like right here. And notice I'm using a So Tight magnet to hold this in place. And I think I've talked about this a little bit. So Tights is coming out with a 20 by 24 inch magnetized cutting mat that I cannot wait to get my hands on it, because what I would be able to do is literally lay this here and just put the magnet right on it, and it would stick to the board without worrying about the backing, right? So you could actually use it like a magnetic board to hold all your pieces. So if you're working with something that you have to keep pieces together, I am beyond excited to get that. Their new magnetized cutting system is what they're calling it. If anybody's interested in pre-ordering that, definitely check my link below this video, because you'll get 15% off. It's like a $50 savings. So, and the other thing is, once I get my So Tight magnetized cutting system, I am going to develop a special project to do using that cutting mat, and it will be a free project for anyone who purchased a cutting mat, so they don't have to also buy the project. So I'm super excited about all this stuff. But again, So Tight's to the rescue, because you notice it doesn't twist. Like if you pin, sometimes it wobbles. You'd have to put a couple pins in. Here, one magnet, it doesn't move, doesn't shift, and so I can accurately walk my collar stand into my neckline to make sure it works. So super excited about my little So Tights. It allowed me to make sure my collar stand and collar were the right length. And then, because I'm working with these lovely stripes, I decided to cut them out on the bias. And you'll notice here, this interfacing is my cotton fuse interfacing. I love this interfacing for collars, cuffs, button plackets on shirts that aren't as soft and drapey. It's my favorite fusible interfacing. And so you'll see here what I did was I cut them out, so when I sew them together, they will match together. Let me do this one. That one seems to be having an issue. Hold on, let me do this one. Okay, so see, like this. So see how that's going to match a chevron. So we're going to do that. I'm going to show you how to cut out your collar pieces to create a chevron stripe at the center back. So remember, if you're going to do that, you need to have a center back seam. So I'm going to show you in real time how to do that. Just move those out of the way. All right, so here's my collar. And what I did here was I already fused, interfacing to this whole piece. And this is my cotton fuse. And you can still see it's still pretty sheer. You can see through it still. It's not a heavy interfacing. It has what I think, you know, the perfect amount of stability for collars and things like that. And if you're working with a stripe, before you interface the stripe, I went over here, I had it on my cutting mat, my pressing surface, and then I kind of pulled it this way so I could literally straighten out all the stripes. You want to make sure all the stripes are straight when you fuse interfacing, because if it's not, then you're going to have wobbly stripes. So make sure your stripes are straight, then you can fuse. And then to find the bias, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little grid ruler here, and basically I'm just going to line up all of these dots so that they hit the stripes going in this direction. So you'll notice if I line up this dot here and this dot here, that's how I know I'm now at the 45 degree. And then, or another way you can do it is, let me make this a little bit bigger here. Oh, and by the way, I do want to say that the, just because I'm going to be in love with my So Tight magnetic cutting mat does not mean I am not in love with my big mat rotary cutting surface mat. The size of the magnetic mat from So Tight is only 20 by 24, so it's good for working on small parts of projects. I still need my big mat to cut out big things, so I will continue to use my big mat from the Big Mat Rotary Cutting Surface Company on my whole table, and I will use the magnetic one when I need to stick things together. All right, so you'll notice on my big mat right here, I have these lines are 45 degrees. So if I line up the stripes on my fabric so that they're parallel to the stripes on my board going this way, then I can use a ruler. I'm just going to lay it out. I'm going to line my ruler up with the 45 degree here. That's how I now know, and I'm going to do it as close to this end as I can, because I need to cut out two that are interfaced. So basically, if I line my ruler up like this, I'm going to line it up like this actually. So you can see this right here is going to be in line with the diagonal. Then I can take my collar and I can just line that up with the edge of my ruler, and that's going to give me the 45 degree. And I'm just going to move it over a little bit, keeping the gap even. Okay, so that's going to give me my first collar. Now remember, I don't have a seam allowance on here because I just folded my collar in half. So the first thing I'm going to do when I cut this out is I'm going to take my ruler and I'm literally going to cut it out at the center back, adding that 1/2 inch. So there's my 1/2 inch. Then I'm just going to cut the rest of the collar out like this. And I'm going to cut this end. Okay, so now I've got one of my pieces cut out. And so I can move this out of the way now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this collar piece. Oops. I think I need a new blade. Okay. Then I'm going to turn it in this direction. So to get it so it's going to be a chevron, it's going in this direction. Now it has to go in this direction. But the cool thing is I don't need my ruler. All I need to do is line up the stripes that I can see through this interfacing with the stripes on the fabric. So basically I'm just going to line up my stripes like this. You can see that now all these stripes are lined up all the way across the entire collar. And that's what's going to give us that, that's what's going to give us that nice chevron. So now I'm just going to cut this out. I don't want to. Okay, so now that I did that, you will see that I can open this up and my stripes are going to match. Okay, so that's my collar. Now I just have to cut out a second collar, and I'm just going to take the rest of this interfacing off. I didn't fuse it like really hard. I just kind of gently fused it. So let's see if I can use the rest of this fabric to, and I think also it's important when you're trying to match stripes, if you have any little wrinkles in your fabric, definitely give those a little bit of a press. So now I'm going to press this. I'm using my Aliso iron that I really, really love. Of course, I don't have any water in it, so I can use my little water squirt bottle. I'm really bad about remembering to fill up my iron. I have very hard water, so I can't use my tap water. I have to use spring water or bottled water. And sometimes I forget to bring a bottled water up here. So squirt bottle works great because it takes forever to, you know, I can use the squirt bottle for months. All right, so now that's nice and pressed. So remember what I was saying about the fabric. When you're going to cut things out on the bias, you want to make sure your stripes are straight. So I'm just going to make sure that my stripes look straight on. And here's the cool thing. I can use my pieces that I already cut out as pattern pieces. So again, I'm going to line up the stripes. Well, let me do this one first. I'm going to line up the stripes like this. And see, I'm just fussing with it until I get all the stripes to match the entire way. Like that. And then this one is going to go this way. You know, so I'm just going to get these to match up on my stripes. Like this. I'm just playing with it to get it to kind of line up exactly. All right, so I've got those lined up. So now I can cut those out. So now I'll have my collar and under collar. The under collar is the collar facing. So under collar and collar facing are two different names for the same piece. And I'm just going to cut these out. Oops. I'm a little short on fabric there, but that'll be all right. one piece there, and then second piece here. All right. I'm having a little trouble lining up this second one, and that's the same trouble I had with the what did I do with the first one I cut out? Okay, so now I've got both of these. Let's just check them to see how they match up. All right, so this one had a little bit of a poo-poo, but it's close. I can make that work. All right, so now we're going to start sewing, and I decided that I would take a minute and wind my bobbin before I came on, so that's already done in the machine. I'm going to bring this down a little, I think. So we can see better here. Let's see. There, that's probably better. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to, I'm going to move myself over here. All right, so let me see if I can get this a little bit closer. Okay, so our first step is we're literally going to take our, oh, I got a thread, sorry. All right, I got to put my bobbin in, hold on. And then I'm also going to put my needle here. Okay. Now I'm going to thread my needle. Okay, I've got that all set. So the first thing we're going to do here is, oh, let me just see. Hi, LB. Lazaro says, hello, Jen. So both the fabric and the interfacings are going to be cut on the bias. And would we interface the under collar with the thin underlining as you did for the button placket? I'm not going to use any. I'm not going to use any interfacing on my on the collar stand facing or the under collar for this because the fabric's pretty substantial. I don't want it to be super stiff, so I think it's going to be okay, but we'll see because we're going to sew it. But my neckline is in fabulous shape because you reminded me to understitch it. I mean, stay stitch it. So LB works in a bank but wants to start your own brand. Kindly help. Well, I don't have a brand of clothes. I just teach sewing techniques and I make patterns and teach people how to fit them and sew them. That's what I do. Okay, so I am going to match up my stripes. So see how those are matching like that? So I can see that they're matching, right? And then I think for this, I'm going to use clips. And I'm going to use my Taylor Seville clips because I can use my clips and I can clip right on each intersection or where those stripes are matching, and I don't have to remove the clip until I'm done sewing. Notice I'm only clipping them 1/4 of an inch in. That way I don't have to take them off. And I'm going to use 3 here. The only time I really pay a lot of attention to clipping things or pinning things is when I'm trying to match stripes. So I'm going to also line up my second one here. My under collar is a little screwed up, but I want to see if I can make it work. So here's an example of one that didn't line up exactly fabulous. Hey Mary, no, it's okay that you're late. I'm just happy that you came. And I just want to thank you. I'll thank everybody who came a little bit late. I reached 40,000 subscribers, and I just wanted to personally thank each and every subscriber for following along with me, because I couldn't be doing all of this without you guys. So I really, really appreciate everyone who takes time out of their day to watch or to follow along. All right, so I'm matching these stripes too. And again, these are a little bit off, so I'm going to be a little offset here, but we're gonna figure that out when we sew the collar and collar stand together. And again, I'm using these Taylor Seville clips because they will stay on my edge until I finish sewing. So now I'm going to go with my 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you can see that those clips, whoops, I do have to plug in my foot control. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So you can see how those clips do not have to be removed. So that way I know that none of my stripes slipped. So if we open this up, oh, well, that didn't work. Well, I guess it did slip a little bit, but I'm going to call close enough on that. All right, let's see if we can do a better job on this one. Hold on. Let's see if my mismatched one matches. Oh yeah, see, I got this one to match almost perfectly. All right, so the next step is I'm just gonna bring my pressing surface over, and we're just gonna press these center seams, and I'm gonna press these seam allowances open. So basically, I am just going to open these up and press them. Now see, this is jogging like this because I cut it a little funky. Oh, Lynn says she needs to get some of those clips. I really do like them. All right, so I'm just put this one aside, and then this one. And again, this is not perfect, but I'm all done with this shirt. I just want to wear it. So, in the big scheme of things, I mean, that one is off. But, ugh, all right, that does bug me. All right, let me see if I can fix it. Hold on. So I know I started out right because that one was good right there. So let me just quickly see if I can do this a little bit better. All right, let's try this one more time. I'm going to reclip that. They look like they match. All right, let me try this one more time. I'm feeling like we should do a better job. All right, let's try it again here. All right, however this is, it's staying. Let me see. Oh, there we go. See? Yay. Happy with that. All right, I'm glad I took a hot second to fix that. And I don't think we need to press again. I think we're okay here. All right, so now we're going to construct our collar. So the way that you sew your collar and collar stand together is you first put your collar and your collar stand together. And I think, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if my fabric's stretched. Huh. So look at this. When I line up my center seams on this, I think my uninterfaced fabric stretched out because look at it's bigger. Oh, Lynn, all right, wait. Joy says, could the feed dogs cause a little distortion? I think when I ripped the interfacing off of the extra, I must have stretched the fabric. So you know what I'm going to do? I am going to line up my center back seams. Oh, Jody's saying I'm making it look easy. I don't think I'm making it look easy. I think I'm making it look screwed up here. Hold on. All right, so I'm just going to line up both of my center back seams. Then I'm going to lay it so I can see. Oh yeah, you want to know how I know it's stretched? Because it's also skinnier. So you know what I'm going to do? So you can see here what happened was it's stretched. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back. So you notice on my board what I'm doing is I'm matching this back up by pulling it wide again like this, see? And then I'm going to match it back up and I'm going to press it. This side is a little bit wonky still, but this side matches perfectly now, almost. This side. So I'm going to give it a little steam. And I'm just shaping the one that's stretched out to the interfaced one. Because I know the interfaced one is accurate. So that now matches perfectly. See? And this one over here is pretty close. I'm going to turn it this way just to see. There's a little bit extra. I'm just going to trim off of this side. I don't know how that happened, but basically, if we look at it now, it matches front to back. So let's pin it on now. All right. So let's look at our collar. Now, where do we sew a collar? This curved, shorter edge, this is the edge that gets sewn onto the collar stand. So we're not going to sew this edge. We're going to start here. We're going to sew up the short edge across the top edge of the collar and back down to this short edge. And we're going to leave this open. So that's how we're going to sew this. So what I'm going to do is, now I think I'm just going to use my little wonder clips here. to hold my collar. And notice I'm putting the curved color side of the Wonder Clip face up, and that's because it's got a nice curved shape on the top, which will allow me to take it off easy. I'll show you. Okay. All right, so just know if you interface one piece and not the other piece, and then the uninterfaced piece is bigger or skinnier or longer, try to like reblock it with your iron. All right, so we're gonna start right here. And I'm gonna try something I've never tried before. Let's see if I can make this work. So I'm gonna start right here. I'm just gonna back tack. We're sewing at a 1/2 inch. And the way I sew my color here is I'm gonna go straight off the end. I'm not gonna try to pivot. Okay. So I've sewn that straight line. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get myself another piece of thread here. I'm going to try this trick where you put a piece of thread in there to pull the point out. I've seen that like on Instagram and other places, so we're going to try it. All right, so then we're going to start sewing here, 1/2 inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this red thread across here like this. So when I get to the intersection of my little seam there, let me just see if I can get this in a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to back tack over the intersection, and then I'm gonna swing this around. I want to keep it all on one side, so I'm gonna just put that right there. And now we're just gonna keep stitching down the long. This is like the top edge, or the outside edge of the collar. Now here's where I got a little wonky, so I'm gonna follow my fused edge. I'm not gonna worry about this edge because it's within the 1/2 inch. So see how I'm still catching it even though it's a little bit wonky there. I'm just gonna and then when I get, I'm gonna get another piece of red thread here. And again, I'm going to sew right off the end. So when I start this short edge, I'm gonna, oh, you know what? There I am right at the seam. I think what might be better is if you just wrap it around the needle like this. Let's try that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back tack, and then I'm going to finish this. All right, so now let's see. We've got our collar here. And what I'm going to do is I've got my little red threads. I'm going to keep those out of the way. And I'm going to trim, diagonally across the points like that. And then I'm also going to come in pretty close like that. And actually, this whole side edge, I don't want to cut my red thread, but I'm going to cut that to 1/4, and then I'm going to get really in there like that. And then, when we pull this through, oh, I'm such a dummy. I was supposed to put this thread inside the collar, so now this thread is basically useless. So I just showed you what not to do, honestly. All right. So anyone who was following along with me, watching me make a boo-boo, you missed an opportunity to show me that I made a boo-boo. So we're going to get rid of those threads here. I'm going to just clip that into the corner a little better. And then I'm going to turn it, and I don't know, I have like these little wooden things I like. So if I turn this, and then just give this a little point, I can get a pretty nice point on that without the thread. Hey, Sarah. Oh, okay, well, I'm sorry that you're working, but please keep me posted if you need help. I will help you. Oh, Mary came up with a good idea. All right, so where's my vintage pincushion here? My mother's tomato. I've got a... All right, I do want to try this. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my thread that I didn't pull to the inside like I should have when I sewed around the corner. Dummy. And I'm just going to stick it in here. And then I'm just going to basically just going to sew it through. I'm going to use this little thing to give me some... I'm going to use this little wooden thing to give me some breath to get in there. All right. All right, there we go. All right, so let's see if this works. Let me just first, whoops. All right, so now I've got my thread on the right side, but let's cut it first. So first I'm going to cut across. And then I'm going to come into the point. Goes to the point. And I'm just going to keep my short edge an even quarter-ish most of the way. All right, so now let's see if I pull this. So using that thread, let's compare the 2 points. Oops, I also pulled something through that I didn't want to come through. Let me just trim that. All right, let's see. I guess it does make a little bit of a nicer point when you do that. To see, I think that one is a little bit pointier than the one that I didn't use the thread to pull it through. So you want to, when you're sewing down, before you turn the corner, shove everything inside. So that's where I screwed that up. But you can see it does give you a little bit nicer of a point. That's the one with the thread. This is the one without the thread. I wonder if I could do it after the fact. Hold on. What if I... All right, so I threaded this little red right here. So what if I went like this? I could go... I could go right into the corner like this, and then go right out of the corner again. And then if I, well, let me see if I can, so now I've got both ends. I'm going to cut my thread here. All right, so then if I point it, but then also pull on it, will that help that? No. Nope, that did nothing. All right, so just remember to put the thread on the inside when you round the corner. We're going to be okay with this. All right, let me get my pressing surface back. And I'm going to give this a nice press now. Now the way I like to press my collar is I like to have the roll. Well, first I'm going to press it. Oh, you know what? Where is my, I don't. So I'm going to use, I don't know where my I have one of those little hardwood pressing boards somewhere. I'm just going to use this. And what I'm going to do here is I like to press my seam allowances open first. And I get it as far as I can. But the little wooden, not nice of me that I didn't think to find that before I came on. I'm sorry. You can get the little wooden clapper, and then it's got the little point that you can press in there. But basically, I want to get as close as I can to my point. And if I had my little clapper, hold on a second. Really annoying to me. I know the minute I get off, I'll find it. But basically, let me just do this. So this is for people who don't have the clapper. All right, so now I'm going to, once I've pressed that like that, I'm also going to turn this inside out and I'm going to put it over here and I'll just press the bees open as much as I can. But I cut them short, so that's, just get it. Press them open. And I'm going to press this open. Like this. Okay. And then to press the rest of the collar, what I want to do is I want to press it so that the public side of the collar actually rolls to the back slightly. So I'm pressing it with the under collar face up, and I'm literally just giving it a press with also rolling it just that little bit. So you can see how I've got that little roll right there. Oh, Lynn says, great tail with the thread pull. I know, I wish I had done it right. I'm a ding-dong sometimes. I will clearly and freely admit it. All right, so see, I'm just getting that roll. And then on the ends, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just rolling it to the facing side. The same thing with this side. So here's another tip. If you sew your center back seam on the under collar just a 1/8 inch deeper than the collar, then it'll make it shorter here and it'll be easier for you to get that nice edge where the collar, the actual facing does not show on the right side. So there is my lovely collar. Okay, and I think before I add the collar stand, I am going to top stitch around the edge. And another thing that can help is when I top stitch, I'm just going to roll it with my fingers like this so that it's rolling towards the inside, and I'm going to use these Taylor Seville clips again to hold the roll, just a little exaggerated to the wrong side. And then that way we won't see, we don't want to see the under collar from the right side. So basically, as I'm pinning it, I'm just rolling it a little bit. And actually this whole top edge is fine. On the sides, I think it might need a little help here. So again, these clips are just on here to help tame the facing fabric until it's top stitched. On my ends is where it's not behaving. So see, I'm just physically going to roll it to the back, just that little bit. Hi Jeanette, welcome. You're very late. That's okay. We're doing collar stand today. And thank you for following along with me. Okay. All right, so I've got that. All right, so I'm going to move this out of the way. Bring my machine back over. Now I'm going to just top stitch, and I'm going to use the width of my presser foot because that's the width that I've been top stitching everything. I'm going to put my stitch length on 3, and we're just going to top stitch Now, I have these little guides on my presser foot. I don't know if you can see them, but that little dash in the front of my presser foot, when I get to the edge, when they get to the edge, that means it's time for me to turn. And see, then I'm even here again. Oops. The only thing about these clips is you have to make sure they're not extended too far, because then your needle will hit them, so you just have to be careful. Okay. All right, so now I'm top stitched. The next thing is we want to put the collar stand together with the collar. And to do that, the first thing I have to do is sew my collar stand pieces together. So I'm going to do the same thing I did. I'm going to line up my, this is not, all right, this, I'm not going to worry about my collar stand matching at the center back because I didn't do a good job cutting this out. So my center back stripes are not matching, and I'm okay with that. Because the good thing about the center back seam on the collar stand is it doesn't show because the collar is folded over it. So on my actual collar stand, you can see I'm screwed up. I'm very happy to show you that I'm screwed up, but I'm not going to worry about it because on my actual facing, which does show on the inside, that will match. So see, this one, I can get this to match, I believe. It's going to be a little offset, but I can get it to match. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's see this now. So see, I got this one to match. I had to offset it a little bit, but that's all right. So this is like real deal sewing, like literally stuff happens and sometimes things don't match, and you can take it apart and fix it if you want, or you can realize which thing shows and which things do not show. Now here's another thing. I'm going to press these open, and then I want to see if I stretched if this stretched out of shape. Okay, so my collar stand did not stretch out of shape like my collar did, so that's nice. Oops, let me get this a little bit bigger so you can see. So see, this does match. So here's how we put this together now. The collar gets inserted or sandwiched. The collar gets inserted or sandwiched into the collar stand. So basically, the collar is here, right? And when it's folded down, so this is the top side of my collar. This is the public side of my collar. When it's on the neck, it gets folded down. And what is it against? It's against the collar stand. So this is going to go like this, right sides together. And this one is going to go like this. So, and what I like to do is I like to just, oops, wait a minute. This goes like this, sorry. So the curved edges are on top, right? And what I like to do is I'm just going to put a clip here. I'm just going to test it. So I just put 3 clips. I'm not lined up yet. I just want to show you what you need to worry about here. Okay, let's pretend this was sewn. So if this was down, oh, also I don't have right sides together. So see, you have to make sure all the moving parts are agreeing before you sew. It's very easy to put the wrong side of something to the wrong side of something. So let me just do that. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this just to see. So if I were to sew this like this, and then when it's finished, it'll be like this. And you can see that this is my collar stand. This is my collar. You want those together in the end because this is going to fold down on it, and then the inside of the collar and the collar facing are together. Okay, so the way you want to remember this is you're putting opposites right side together. So I've got this is my under collar, no interfacing. It goes together with the interfaced collar stand. So just think about it like this. You're going to put the unfused piece or the fused piece next to the unfused collar, and you're going to put the unfused collar stand with the fused collar. So you put the opposites right sides together. Facing under collar, facing for the collar stand with the actual top collar. The actual collar stand with the interfacing goes against the under collar. Okay, so that's the order of which they go together, and you want to make sure you line up all your center back edges. So that's the first thing I'm going to line up here. I'm going to put a pin to hold them. And then you want to get your under collar and your collar all lined up here. And notice that the collar is going to stop. You know, there's going to be a little bit of extra length in the collar stand. This curved part, there's no collar there. But that's okay because we don't want collar to go all the way. So I'm just going to put a pin here. And I'm going to put a pin here. I'm lining all of these things up on this end. like this. So see, we're sandwiching all of these layers together along the base of the collar and the top of the collar stand. Okay, so that's how we're going to sew. Notice the collar sticks out the bottom of the collar stand. Don't worry about that. Okay, so now we're going to sew this, and I'm going to start here. Basically, we're sewing a 1/2 inch. Oh, you know what? I always have agita sometimes with this. So what I'm going to do, I'm literally going to use my ruler, and I'm actually going to stitch in the line to sew. So here's my 1/2 inch. It was pink going to show through? No. And then I'm just going to dash in here where the curve is at a 1/2 inch. Because I want to have that to have a nice shape. So if you just dash in a guide like this, that'll make it so much easier to get a nice shape. So again, my 1/2 inch. Oops. And then 1/2 inch. Give yourself, that'll help make a nice shape because that curved edge on the edge of the collar stand shows, and if they're not the same, they look funny. So give yourself a nice guide. And now, as you can see, it's going to be very easy to sew this. I'm just going to follow along the curve of my maybe a little, let me do it like that. All right, so now I'm going to sew this on my line. And then we're going to turn. Okay, and then of course the straightaway is pretty easy. I want to make sure all of my seam allowances stay pressed open when I go over the center back. So it's kind of bulky. That's another reason why I'm not interfacing both the under collar and the collar, or the collar stand and the collar stand facing, because this pile is already really thick. All right, now as I come to the end here, I'm going to make sure I follow my little pink it's almost like a little jog where it's straight here. All right. Okay, so now we have sewn our collar and collar stand. Later. All right, so again, I'm going to trim this whole thing to a 1/4. You know, and especially through this bulk, I'm just going to trim it to a 1/4. This is all very bulky. And I mean, you can grade your seams if you want to. Some people will, you know, grade 1 to a 1/4 and 1 to an 1/8. You know, depending on how fancy I want my collar to be, or how not, you know, how professional I want it to look. You can grade your layers, but this is an easy breezy summer button up, so I don't want to make myself too crazy. All right, so let's turn this to see how this looks now. Oh, I didn't think to match my stripes to my collar stand here. All right, let's see. All right, well, I got that to match up pretty nicely, but here my seam shifted a little bit. But I think I am just going to leave that. Working with stripes will show you every flaming thing that can happen to not make it come out right, but oops. All right, so I'm going to press this down now. And I'm going to press this side down. All right, so the way this is going to, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use my little wooden doohickey here to sort of go in and sort of press out the curve, make sure it's a nice shape. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is, after I give it a nice press in both directions, I am going to do this isn't a like super crease, this is just a gentle press to give the collar the message that I'm going to want it to fold down in the end. So I'm not pressing hard, I'm just sort of hovering my iron and giving the fabric the message that this collar is going to fold down like this when it's around my neck, right? And if I were working on something and over time, I literally would wrap this around the neck of my dress form and let it sit overnight, because it kind of sets the shape for it. If you can wrap it around, wrap it around and then let it live in its final position. So something like this, like on the dress form, or you could actually pin it onto your ham if you don't have a dress form. Just let it sit like this. You can see that's going to make a very nice looking collar. But like letting it rest in a sort of in position, letting it rest in position, I think helps it, stay nice once it's actually on your shirt. So, but for today, I'm not going to do that. All right, so I just want to show you how to sew the collar stand onto the collar. And what I like to do here is my neckline, all nice and in shape because it was stay stitched. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this is my collar stand, the one with the interfacing gets lined up with my center back seam. So I'm going to pin that to the seam like this. And I'm going to clip it on. Then I'm going to reach around and I'm going to pin the very edge of my collar to the very edge of my button placket like this. I'm literally going to nestle the fold of, this is my button placket right here. I'm going to nestle that into the straight. Now notice when I did this very end of the collar stand is straight. That's the seam allowance. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to nestle that right into that intersection. And this gets a traditional pin, not a clip, because I want to pin that fold so it's butted up right next to or right in the ditch of the seam between the collar stand and the collar stand facing like that. That's how that's going to wrap around there nicely. And out of everything you do when you sew your collar to your neckline, that's the most important thing. You want to make sure when you turn this to the right side, it's in there nicely and even. And I'll show you how that's going to work out. So I've got that pin. And then I'm just going to, I guess I can use clips for the rest of this. I'm going to clip my neckline to my collar. And you can see, one thing I highly recommend, now you've noticed I've made several little boo-boos today where, oh, this didn't match, that didn't match, blah, 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 blah. You want to make sure that your collar stand walks into your collar stand walks onto your neckline perfectly, because you don't want to have to ease in or fuss around with getting the collar stand to match the neckline, because if you do, one of them is going to look strained or gathered. So you really want this to be one-to-one. So I literally walked my collar stand around my neckline like 3 times just to make sure it was 100% matching, because if your neckline is a little bit bigger than your collar stand, let's say, and you ease it in, you'll get little gathers or little wrinkles around the seam. And it also makes your collar sort of not lay right. So you really want to make sure that you double and triple checked. Now let me go on this side. Again, here's my little straight part of my, the tip of the collar stand. I'm going to nestle that right up against, the fold right into that. So it's right there. Literally, the fold of the button placket is nestled into that seam. And then I'm going to just pin that with a real pin or a regular, my magic pin. These pins are also from Taylor Seville. They're their magic pins. I love them. So that's right in there. And then again, I'm going to just match up the rest of my neckline. Okay. All right, so now we're going to sew this. Louise Park says thank you. Well, you're very welcome. I'm not sure what you're thanking me for, but you're welcome. All right, so I'm going to start sewing here, but here at the very beginning, we have to make sure we don't catch the facing when we sew the very beginning of the, or the tip of the collar here. And I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to start at the center back, and I'm going to go in each direction, I think. I think that will work easier. So I'm going to start at center back, 1/2 inch, and we're going to start stitching. This will allow me to, I think it's easier to get at the tip of the, or that end of the collar stand from the, you know, oncoming direction. All right, so let's take our time here. Make sure you're not catching any extra fabric in your seam. Now when I get to here, I'm just going to pull this out. Make sure I'm not catching it. So basically, I'm stitching all the way to that very end. And this is where we really do not want to catch anything. I'm not going to take that pin out until I'm literally right there. Okay, and then I'm gonna back up. Let's just look and see how that worked out. So now when we turn this around like this, you can see it's going to wrap and it's going to be really, really close. See? Because we nestled that edge right in there. And so when we wrap it around, it's really going to match up nicely. All right, so now I'm going to start from the center back again. And this time the neckline will be on the bottom, but that's all right. Make sure nothing is underneath your, needle that shouldn't be. Keeping it all even. Again, I'm making sure that we're not catching anything underneath there. All right, now when we get to here again, I'm going to take the facing. Oh, see, this way the facing is out of the way because it's on top. So we're literally going to stitch. Now see, okay, so there's an advantage of doing it with the collar stand on top and the neckline on the bottom, and there's also an advantage of having the neckline on the top and the collar stand on the bottom. The first time we did it, we could see where to stop really easily, but we couldn't see this collar stand being in the way. Here we can see the collar stand, but it's a little bit harder to see the end of the collar stand. So I'm just going to keep stitching really slowly until I think I get right to the stitching. I think it's right there. And now I'm going to back up. Let's see how that looks. Okay. Let's see. So see, this is what it looks like now, right? So we've got the collar stand. I'm sorry, the button placket, the seam, the collar stand. I'm going to push this all up, wrap that around. And I think that's going to also line up pretty nicely. See? I might trim a little bit in there. Uh-oh, Lazarus is saying, you inspire me to do something today. I saw your heart-shaped cookie cutter on your cutting table and it gave me the urge for something sweet. I'm going to whip up some vegan whipped cream. Oh, well, you know what I use this for? I use this to make my mom has Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. She's at a memory care place. So I made her thumb holes. I finished the hole for the thumb for some sleeves with a heart-shaped facing. And then, oops, hold on. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. So here's what they look like. And then I was so happy when I went to go visit on Thursday, she was wearing them. So it protects her skin when she's wearing short sleeves or when she rolls her sleeves up because she has very tender skin on her wrists and arms. So that's what I used this for. Although I did do cookies with my granddaughter. We did do cookies. So I did actually use them to make cookies. You can see that she had a lot of fun with the sprinkles of the frosting. So we did do that a couple weeks ago. So that's why I have the cookie cutter. All right, so to finish this up here, the next step is I'm going to press all of this seam allowance up. I am going to probably, okay, so you can see here, I don't need to have all of this bulk because I also have this seam allowance here. So I'm literally going to cut off, because this is going to wrap around, right, to here. So I don't need, maybe I'll trim, I'm going to trim a little bit of this out of the way here, just a little bit. I'm trimming some of the facing and some of the seam allowance away, like at the bottom 1/8 inch. So that will give me a little less bulk. So when I come around, okay, this is going to be like this, and then this is going to get tucked up like that. And I'm going to carefully press the entire thing and pin it. But basically, before I even press anything, I can, well, I probably will press it first, but my point is the next step is to press this 1/2 inch up. Now, one thing I should have done, here's another thing. If you press this under before you sew it, it will be pressed under when you get to this stage. I forgot to do that step, but that's another thing you can do. Oh, and look at, I was being so careful not to catch something and I caught something, so I'm going to fix that. And then I'm going to press this up. And then I'm going to, I think I might, well, I don't know. I'm going to press it and then sew it, but let me just show you before we go. I'm going to get my girl over here. All right, so let me just put this on here so you can see how it's going to be. I'm going to run this one for this. Let me move my camera out of the way here. I'll put my camera up. All right, so when this is finished, here, right? This is going to fold down. You can see I'm going to have this cute little collar. Yeah, so I'm pretty pleased. All right, well, it's not pressed yet, but I just wanted to show you that it's going to. Okay, you can see that's going to be a really pretty little collar on my Easy Breezy Summer Shirt. See? And there's my chevron in the back. So, pretty happy with this. All right, so. All right, so I've kept you for an hour and a half, so I think I'm going to be done. I will show you photos, or I'll show you the finished, but just to tell you, the rest of the steps are we're going to press the seam allowances up, we're going to press this down, we're going to press that under a 1/2 inch, and then we're going to sew it in place. And depending on how I'm feeling, I might actually hand stitch the facing to the neckline, or I will sew it and top stitch through, and but I'll see how it pins together. If I can get it to pin in the ditch and line up with the fold of the bottom edge of the facing on the inside, I'll just top stitch it. If I can't get those two things to match up, I will just hand stitch it. So that's how I'm going to finish my Easy Breezy Summer button up. So this brings us to the end of this sew along. If anybody wanted more, like more step by step, I do teach a class on pattern review called the Perfectly Fitted Shirt. And I think Lynn had asked me about the Easy Breezy Summer Shirt pattern. It's not a pattern in my store. It's not a pattern in my collection. I used my Perfectly Fitted Shirt pattern, and I hacked it into an Easy Breezy shirt. So this is the pattern I worked with. There is a link to this in the description below, and I will put a link to if anybody wants any of the cotton fuse interfacing I use to do the collar. I'll put a link to that when I get off. So that's my report. This weekend I am teaching a class that was supposed to be hosted by Stitches Events, my Great Rub Off class. And I just want to show you, I'm kind of excited. What did I do with the actual dress? Oh, here it is. So I think I showed you this last week, but this dress, I've rubbed it off and I'm going to make it, I mean, you can almost see how like stiff this cotton is. It's very stiff and it's not super comfortable. So my upgrade is I got this really nice cotton gauze at Joann's, believe it or not. I went there and I got this. It's a really nice soft gauze. This is what I'm going to make her dress out of, using the pattern I rubbed off. So I will be sharing that during class this weekend, and I'll also share with you guys either next week. I'll show you pictures of the finished dress. But if anybody wants to learn how to copy ready-to-wear clothes without taking it apart, I will have several options for the Great Rub-Off. I'm teaching it this weekend. I'm teaching it as a 1.5-hour Zoom class with pattern review, and that's going to be on, I should really have written down all of my dates. So we're in June. So on the 20th from 3 to 4:30, I'm teaching it as just a quick slideshow, and then I'm also teaching it again in August. So I will be doing my June newsletter today, and I'll get that out for you either tomorrow morning or Sunday morning, with all the information for my classes in July, June and July, and then also in August. I'm going to put all my summer classes in there so you have information to join me if you'd like to. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Uh-oh. Mary just said there's no more Joann's stores in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Joann's is in trouble. I know Joann's is in trouble. I've heard the rumors of it, but you can go online and order these fabrics. Our Joann's in Manchester, Connecticut is really, it's a nice Joann's. It's got a lot of stuff in it. But anyway, if anybody has any questions about any of these collar issues, please post them below and I will help you. Fit Tip Tuesday this week, Fit Tip Tuesday this week is going to be a different topic. I'm off tops and sleeves. And then I will be starting something new next week. So you'll have to join me to find out what that's going to be, because I'm not 100% sure on what I'm working on next for FabFit Friday. But please join me and you'll find out. So you guys have a great weekend. Thank you, thank you, thank you for helping me get to 40,000 subscribers. I really, really appreciate that. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. And I will see you again very, very soon. Have a nice weekend. Bye.